We are back. Civic Cocktail returns with Andre Taylor, founder and executive director of Not This Time, a police reform and racial justice organization. Hi, Andre. Thank you so much for coming back. You've been on Civic Cocktail before.
We've done this before.
This is it.
Yeah.
We're very glad to have you here.
You.
I know you've been asked this question a couple times, so do bear with me.
Sure.
But how did you feel when you spent so much time organizing and delivering a peaceful protest last weekend, only to have it sort of, I have to look for the right word, but like changed by a more violent group?
Well, I don't think it was changed because we had, again, not only a peaceful but a successful rally with 10,000 plus people from Westlake all the way to
amazing number.
The federal courthouse. Yeah. And so there was not one incidence of violence. So that is success, you know. You go out there and you tell the people what you expect of them and what you want. You deliver the messaging. Your stuff is completed. You can build upon that completion of success. It's the other things out there that you can't build upon. We've seen these situations. I don't know why particularly our city or any city is stunned by what's going on, because we've seen it over and over and over again. We've seen neo-Nazi groups and white supremacist groups and anarchists come into this space to distract and to do what they do, right? But it never lasts. It goes away and it never manifests nothing, so I'm not going to be distracted by it. That's the police's job.
You have said that. You have said that it's up to police to deal with those who infiltrated. How, in general, do you think police performed here in the last few days?
It's hard to have a grade because it's not completed. I can grade what we did because it's completed.
Yes.
Right? I know there's been complaints, and I can understand how it's hard for the police probably to navigate in between peoples that have infiltrated into protesters. So you have protesters and you have rioters and you have looters. Those are three different things. And the media has been clumping those three together. So when you have a looter and a rioter on purpose that infiltrates protesters to create issues, then how do you deal with that, right? How can you deal with who is who? You know, they're good at what they do. They've had a concerted effort around the country to infiltrate or rallies like this on purpose. I heard somebody say when they have, when they had the rally about opening up the country, there was never no violence there. You know, so when it comes down to black people, trying to say, listen, these things are wrong in our country, then there so happens to be all these ruckus and things that are going on. So, I think we have to know who the real enemy is.
So right before this show started, I believe you were one of the folks in the meeting with the mayor.
I was.
What are the key things that you asked her for, and how receptive did you find her?
Well, I came down there just because I know that there were young people that wanted some answers. But let me just say this, I have 6 kids. I know young folks because I know my own kids, and I know there's a...
It's a good way to get to know them.
Well, yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And they wear me out. I'm glad that they're grown now, right? But they have a tendency to want something kind of instantaneous, right? And they kind of want to do things their own way. Even my own kids, people often say to me, your kids, are very lucky because the amount of information and knowledge that you have. And I say, well, my kids are. I mean, I have one that's graduated Yale and UCLA. Other ones are married to some military guys. But they want to do things their own way. And so when you have somebody that want to do things their own way and they are really strong-willed about that, it's a challenge when you are an older person with maybe wisdom and they are younger. The scriptures say they call the young because they're strong and call the old because they're wise. So that dichotomy, dealing with that within young folks, is a challenge because you want them to be able to express themselves and grow into their own experience. You want that, right? But you are so cautious for them doing so because you've made mistakes in your life and some of the things that they can be, going a certain direction could hurt them.
But I'm asking you in that meeting just a couple hours ago, what did you go in seeking, and what do you think you came out of there with?
In the meeting, I'm going to tell you what I said. I spoke to those young people.
I see that.
Yeah.
I see.
See? So there was a theme in there, and everybody was telling the mayor what we want you to do, what we want you to do. So I told them, I said, listen, don't ever cede your power to anybody. And activism is about what you are going to do, right? What you are going to do. I don't want you to think that you don't have the ability nor the power or the genius to do what you want to do. And then you build power based upon what you want to do. And then when you go to somebody, it's not an ask, it's a force.
But I would like to know just a little bit more about some of the specifics. In other words, you're talking about sort of the pacing of what was asked for.
Well, the young people were, let me just say that because I don't want to denigrate anybody. I support these young people. But you have to understand with passionate young people that are doing things for the first time.
There's that.
Do you understand?
Yeah, there's that.
That people can be all over the place. You understand?
Indeed.
So I just try to give a little foundation for people to operate within their space and genius without discouraging young folks to operate, you know?
So it sounds like they ask for some things that maybe, like, it's not that you don't support them, but you might not have prioritized for something.
Again, they were asking for the system to do something that the system has never done for us. And I was just mainly saying to them, it's going to have to be within you to get done what you want to get done. And you have the power to do so.
So if we
and
didn't,
that wasn't all of them, that was just some of them.
Yeah, so but a few things that kind of give you hope that they asked for and you thought the mayor actually could or would deliver, something like that.
Probably just an ongoing conversation.
So that is something.
That is very much
that
so
is something important.
Yeah, that is very much so something.
So I asked the mayor the same thing, and you know, under any other circumstances that were not coronavirus, we would have had you both in the same room.
Sure. We've been in the same room many times.
Answered some of the same question. But President Trump has said that he would like to send the military into cities that can't stop their own violence.
Sure.
How would that work in the situation that we have, which we're trying to be productive?
Well, then you're talking about a man that lacks leadership and has elevated what I believe his idea of economics over principle. So a person like that will say anything just to change the subject, you know what I'm saying? And we have seen that he have done that often. So about him bringing the military, and I've heard the mayor earlier before I came in. And,
oh, were you watching? Yeah.
Right. So I'm encouraged from hearing the governor. I had to leave that meeting with the mayor earlier because I had to get on the line with the governor. So there were some things that were asked of the governor about that, and he said that that won't happen. So hearing it from the governor and hearing it from the mayor, it's reassuring.
That there won't happen.
Yes.
Coronavirus, there is a connection here. It impacted communities of color more than others. Do you think that is part of why, and you're referring to the young people, but they're all ages, people feel so fragile now, so needing to express themselves in these
let me explain it to you like this, Joni. COVID-19, what it did is, I always say God put everybody on punishment. Right? Everybody was in the room. You couldn't go out the house. You're on punishment. You're on restriction.
Oh,
right?
on punishment.
Yeah. In our communities, it's called punishment. In your community, it's called what? Restriction, or timeout. Let's just say that. So, a timeout.
Good one.
So anyway, and there's a lot of bend-up frustration because people couldn't leave their homes. So now when an incident happens like this, that's already bad, then you have to now put on top of that the stress of what COVID-19 has placed everybody that has been marinating over a period of time. So when people come out, in addition to this George Floyd situation, now you've intensified it 100-fold. So now the potential of violence is extremely high because people are like pissed off, and they're not going to take it anymore.
But think about it also, just the protests themselves, there was no 6 feet of spacing or distancing.
That tells you how committed people are to causes, that they're willing to put their lives on the line. And that's what happened. Let me just say this. I was talking to a news outlet, and I said, let me explain something to you so that you can understand the temperature of the country. When you beat a people to a pulp, if it is the objective of law enforcement around this country and this country also to beat a people to a pulp as you have done black people, to submit them as you have done black people, right? To beat them so much in whatever area of life that we've tried to exalt ourselves in until we're underneath the bottom. You've accomplished that. Let me just say that. But the problem in that is that when you do that to a people, they stop fearing and they stop being afraid to die. Because they're going to say, you're going to kill me when you pull me over in the car. You're going to kill me when I'm jogging down the street. You're going to kill me when I'm in the park. And since you're going to kill me then, I'm going to hold court in the street. And I'm going to get home to my mom. I'm going to get home to my brother. I'm going to get home to my children. I'm going to get home to my husband and wife. And whatever I got to do right now, because I have the evidence that America cares nothing about us, we're going to do it. So that's the temperature that you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was maybe helpful to everybody, and it was a side point. It was a small note.
Well, I just want you to understand how serious things are, because sometimes when people get in on these things, they're not giving you the truth.
That's why we're glad to have you
Exactly.
to make those points for us.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. I did notice, though, that the Parks Department, and I don't know who thought this up, but I thought it was kind of a good idea, was at some of the protests handing out masks. And trying to say, yes, of course, this is the passion, but let's not jeopardize people further.
Well, I don't know if the Parks Department, before I even had, because you don't have all the information, before I even had the march, I talked to the mayor and Carmen Best. They asked, what can they do? So I said, well, at least you can have the law enforcement out there passing out masks and water.
Well, good. It was your idea.
Yeah. So
very good.
So not only that,
very
but
good.
Also executive consulting office called and also brought more masks also. So people wanted to try to do what they want to do. You know, a little bit of you know, just trying to understand.
So I'm going to my phone here. I'm not just
Sure.
reading news headlines or anything. Here's an audience question, and we really try to involve our audience
Sure.
here. So, if you had a single request of Mayor Durkin, something she could act on immediately, what would that be?
I wouldn't ask Mayor Durkin, because I understand it's bigger than Mayor Durkin, right?
But you met with her. You asked her for something.
I don't ask people for nothing. I create power, like I did with Initiative 940, and we force people to do things. Right? I just told you earlier what I told those young people. I told them that out of my own experiences. So black people cannot afford to be going over there playing from a position of weakness, playing a victim. At this point right now, we have to stand up, realize our own power, our own capacity to change things, and with our own genius, make sure it gets done. So I wouldn't go to Mayor just and say, would you please do this for me?
Yeah.
I will create power first, and then I will tell her, this is what you should do, or this is what the consequences are. The voters, and do you understand?
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
yes. I understand that it's a sort of a different position to be approaching it from. Yes. Of course. But what is a step that the city, or you said you spoke to the governor?
Well, one of the biggest steps is to do something about SPOG. SPOG has been an impediment to change in this city forever. Right? I have organized for over 4+ years. I have brought other law enforcement agencies in, other communities.
So SPOG, just for our audience, is Seattle Police Officers Guild.
Yeah, I'm just talking about all the people that we have brought in, from Patty Murray to Pramila Jayapal to the mayor to the police chief and on. Even the governor was a part of 940. And every community meeting that I asked SPOG to come to, they resisted and said no. So right now, SPOG is an impediment to this change. That's one of them.
Okay.
And the SPOG contract that should have been accepted in 2017, that City Hall, that I'm still pissed off with to this day, went along with SPOG and did not accept the things and what we had put forth as a community in 2017 that held police officers accountable.
So we're still on that disciplinary thing. It's not in the police contract yet.
Exactly.
That's what's holding up the whole.
So until whoever the powers that be make sure we go back to what was agreed on, what City Hall unanimously voted on, we're going to have a damn problem.
You mentioned Initiative 940.
Yes.
And actually you were on the show discussing that.
And Joni, I'm not mad at you. I'm just talking.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. We're good. We're good. As we noted on the phone yesterday, we're all good. You led Initiative 940 a few years ago.
Sure.
And successfully changed the law on police misconduct. How could that effort on 940 help other cities, other states at this time?
People call me from around the country and ask how we did it. And what I tell them is that, listen, it's extremely important changing the law, but equally important is the implementation of that law. So within 940, we wrote that community had to be at the table during the implementation process so that law enforcement would not water down 940. So we've been in that process for a very, very, maybe a year, right? But COVID prevented us from the ending part of locking the implementation down. So a lot of things that are going on right now, we still don't have the law implemented so the law could have bite. So when an officer has behavior the way that we've seen over there in Minnesota, we can hold them accountable.
So to COVID slowed a lot of things down.
Yes,
we know that.
exactly.
But what was the piece? And there's some talk that the implementation hasn't been completed.
No, it's
and
not.
that they might even need a legislative session, part of a legislative session to address that.
940 wasn't everything, but 940 was the ability to let people know that they have the power to control their city and their state. We were always going to build on the foundation of 940. It was the foundation, a foundation of change. But we're not finished with it because there's other things that we want to do. But you got to have a foundation to build from. You have to set the precedent first, right? So that's what we're doing right now.
Well, I don't want to be nosy here, but with the did the governor call
Why
about
you being nosy then?
That's how we talk, you and I. Because I'm a journalist, and that's a setup for a question, and usually successful.
That's right.
While we're at it. So was the governor asking about what parts of 940 still need to be completed, something like that?
Tony, let me explain something to you again because I want you to get it real clearly. We're not into asking nobody. We're not into asking the government.
Okay, but when you guys were talking...
Rephrase it, reporter.
Let me do it in your way.
Okay.
When you were talking to the governor, did you present the power of the idea?
Well, what
Something
we wanted
like
to
that.
do was make sure that we completed the implementation stage where we had something concrete. It would make it easier to go back into legislation and policy after it was concrete. So the governor has supported everything we wanted to do, and he's still in support of it. So as we continue to build upon it, I'm sure he will support it as well.
Do you think that the effort today by the city attorney, who wants to say that the federal consent decree that Seattle is still living under,
I think that's
should be delayed? Did you think that was a good idea?
I think that's very smart. I know Pete Holmes. I built relationships with all people. I think that is very, very smart because there was going to be problems there. There was going to be big problems. And listen, when you galvanize Washington State, 60% of the state voted for 940. Guess how many in King County? 71%. So now that's voters, right? So now you can galvanize voters. Now you can tell people, if you don't do the right thing, we're going to vote you the hell out of here. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be saying that on your thing. Yeah. So again, I think Pete Holmes was smart to do what he did.
Okay, this is an audience question. Since Mayor Durkin isn't willing to acknowledge Black Lives Matter and protester demands, is the movement willing to consider implementing, and you'd have to explain this, Obama's My Brother's Keeper community initiatives?
I don't know where they got that the mayor does not support Black Lives Matter. I've never heard her say that at one time. As a matter of fact, I've heard her speak strongly against...
She did here this evening.
She said she's not supportive of Black Lives Matter?
This is a questioner whose name I can't tell you because I don't know, but is saying, since Mayor Durkin isn't willing to acknowledge Black Lives Matter and protester demands.
Oh, well, I don't know whether she did that. Now, if we have it on record, that gives me something to go have a conversation with her about. But I don't want to say what she didn't say until I got the evidence, So, I don't know about that. Because people were in the room, she acknowledged everything they said. So again, just the acknowledgement of what you're asking people to do don't mean anything if you don't have power behind it. So I'm not, I don't want to go just hearing lip service. We've heard that for over 50 years of politicians and the like with lip service. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I'm not interested in somebody telling me what they're going to do because you haven't done nothing for 50 plus years. We've been in this country 400, let me just say that. So it's time for us to be able to do something different. So listen, Tony, let me take you like this. So we've been marching for all these years. Marching is to get acknowledgement of things that's going on. But marching is not going to change the law, it's not going to change policy, and it's not going to change people's policy. You have to force people into change.
But you changed the law.
Because we forced them to do it with the people. We changed it with the people. Is what I'm trying to explain to you. That means building power. So it's hard to try to communicate a strategy of how you go about doing things, because we've done something a little different that others haven't done, which is why we are the first and only state with a police accountability law. So I'm trying to kind of explain to your audience some of the fundamentals of how we got that change, right?
Yes.
So I make sure that I'm not distracted. Why, when we have the winning component, that I allow myself to be distracted by anything that's not winning, that hasn't been winning over 50, 60, 70 years? When we have something that we can not only lead Washington, but the whole country with, if we continue to build upon that, right? So you have to be really tunnel vision, because there's a million distractions.
Have you heard from many other states that they would like to do what they're doing
Absolutely.
in Washington?
Oh, my word, absolutely.
Some of the states that you've talked to?
Yeah, California, down to Chicago. I've talked to Philadelphia. I've talked to activists from everywhere. Yeah.
And so do you think you'll be involved in some of those efforts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I won't do is go in there like I'm big old. I will go in there and build with the people on the ground that's doing the work on the ground. Then
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't want to be big old.
No.
whatever you just said.
And then, you don't go in like that. You respect the people that's doing the work where they're at.
Right. Well, what concrete change? This is quite a moment in our city. Let's be clear about that.
And in our country.
And in our country, absolutely. What concrete change do you think is coming to our city, our state, as a result of what's been going on these last 5 days?
I don't think it's a result. That's kind of an insult to the people that have suffered in our country for hundreds of years.
Progress. I mean progress.
Okay. But let me just say, there's many George Floyds that we don't know about. And out of respect for them and the people that have fought and died before, I want to say it's not these 5 days, right?
That's fair. No, that's entirely fair.
We had to build
Absolutely.
to these 5 days,
Yes,
right?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
So now, within this time setting, I believe in timing. Things has a season and a time to change. And I feel that I'm very, very responsible for what I must do in my change. But we have to deal with this thing with tentacles, right? Where one person does this within their genius and expertise, and 7 other people do it in their genius and expertise in order to come at this situation that's been an issue for 400 years for my people, right? Yeah. So the fact that we have understood that people have talked to us that don't work anymore, that's a shift, right? The fact that we can come together and mobilize, and now we have white allies, that's a shift. On Saturday, I don't know if you know, but I gave white allies an assignment. Do you know that?
I read something about that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So my assignment to white allies was this. Listen, I know when you come to our organizations or even rallies that your thought is that you are there to give black people space and give them a voice. I said that is the wrong messaging.
Go ahead.
It is insulting for you to think you can give us a space or a voice. We've been doing this for a very, very long time, and we've been doing it from the position of, of our condition in this country. What I want you to do, white folks, as I have done, with the passion of my organizing throughout this state, I want you to take that same passion with your privilege, with the power of your privilege, and I want you to infiltrate your own community. I want you with the same passion to infiltrate your own, and don't relinquish your privilege. Don't you ever relinquish your privilege. You can't help us with you relinquish your privilege by you thinking that that's going to benefit us. It's not going to benefit us. You keep your privilege, but you then infiltrate your own people with that privilege. And then once you have done the organizing, you bring that to us. And when you're operating in your privilege and your genius, and we as a people are operating in our might and our genius, then we can get things done faster than you can ever imagine.
Okay, not meaning to offend with choice of words, but I would like to know, after this time, what concrete change you think we really might be able to achieve.
I just explained to you what I think we could achieve. I told you.
It seemed more like a process.
Everything is a process. Mm-hmm. You know, if you think you're going to get microwave oven overnight, let me tell you, I strategized 5 years out. so that I won't get caught up in the ebb and flow of the disappointments and the crushing of what is being seen in our communities, right? If I didn't have a 5-year plan, the mere pain and agony of what continually is done to people in our community all over the country, the ebb and flow of that I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. So I have to have a 5-year plan that even though a situation like George Floyd happens, I deal with it, but I know that I have to get to that 5-year plan to deal with it for real, right? To rectify it for real.
Okay, so on a more granular level, I guess, then the mayor in here just a little bit ago conceded that the city isn't very good at crowd dispersal and said something she wants to change. What would you recommend to her to change about the way the city has been going about that?
Well, listen, that's not my lane. You know what I'm saying? That's not my lane. I know that there's young people and white people out there that are overwhelmed by the treachery and just the savagery in which this white police officer killed George Floyd. The cavalier attitude with his hands in his pocket. Him knowing that witnesses around him, knowing that cameras were watching him and saying, I don't care if any camera all over the world is watching what I'm doing. I'm a white male officer and I'm going to show you I could do this. The savagery of that. I'm going to show you that nothing could happen to me. I'm going to show you that black people are nothing. That's different. That's like smudging it in our faces, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference, if you want to know a difference. So, again, when you're talking about dispersing the crowd that are now compelled by that savagery that the whole world has seen, this is something different. It's a very, very difficult situation to navigate.
So on a slightly more positive note, what does it mean to you when police officers take a knee with the protesters? Does that mean maybe that these entities can work together?
The only time, taking a knee, I understand that. But when you stand up when an officer does something that's inappropriate, that's much better. Taking a knee is okay. But
I'm talking about the officers taking the knee.
That's what I'm talking about. I said when an officer stands up and sees another officer that has done something inappropriate, wrong, devastating, when they stand up and say something about that taking a knee means nothing. We need principled officers when they see something. You know what they say to the community? When you see something, say something. Yeah, that's what we're asking you to do. When you see something, do something.
We did have an example of one police officer. The mayor and I discussed it. I don't know if you were there in time watching it. One police officer here in Seattle, knee on a protester.
Okay, that's a good beginning.
And then here's the moment.
That's
the
a good
other
beginning.
officer comes over and pushes his knee away.
Yeah,
in other words, I'm
it.
teaching you.
Okay, that's good. But let me tell you, I talked to Dan Satterberg during us doing 940. We had a great candid conversation, and I asked him a question because they're always saying there's good cops out there. So I said, if a good cop sees a bad cop acting badly, and he doesn't do anything, is he considered a good cop? Right?
Yeah.
Dan said, I seen it happen one time. And what they did to him to destroy him was a lesson to any other officer. Now, this, you can talk to Dan because he told me that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
You know what I'm saying?
But, I mean, the story is, you can elaborate a little bit.
The story is another cop tried to stand up and say something.
I see.
And police destroyed him for trying to say something. Right? All the club and the blue line destroyed him for trying to speak up against wrong. And that is going on all over our countries. So when you say somebody's taking a knee, that's cute. But when you stand up on principle and you say something and you do something, that's different.
So at the beginning of our talk here this evening, you were talking a lot about folks who had come in from outside or kind of outside agitators. Danny Westnate, I mentioned this to the mayor as well, from the Seattle Times, looked at the arrest records. And as much as there were these national stories, there were local stories as well that folks were coming into Seattle, coming into Portland, coming into other places. A look at the arrest records showed that many of them of the folks who disrupted your own peaceful protest are
mine.
homegrown. They're from Seattle, or
Yeah,
they
not
gave
mine.
Seattle addresses. What about that?
Yeah, what about that is that you're the only one that's shocked to know that you got neo-Nazis in the city. You're the only one
I'm actually
shocked to
not
know that you
shocked.
got
I'm
the
actually not shocked
that they got
because
the Proud Boys in the city. You're the only one shocked that got white supremacists in the cities.
I'm
You think they
actually not
don't live
shocked.
here?
But we also have professional protesters here as well.
Okay. But I'm saying we're talking about individuals that have proven that they will kill. Remember Charlotte?
Of course.
They have proven that they will kill. So we're talking about something different. We're talking about a different type of mind. We're not talking about anything cute. We're talking about something that somebody will take a person's life. That's something different.
That is indeed.
Yeah.
You know, I could talk to you all evening, but I am out of time here.
Okay.
And I want to thank you so much for
you.
coming. Big thanks to Andre Taylor of the group Not This Time for coming to our show tonight.